So today I have with me Robert and Noah Barnes, and you guys have a quite interesting story together. We did a talk before about your walking across America. I don't want to focus just on that, but it's natural that we start with that part of the conversation. Can you tell us what have you done?
Well, we have gone from Key West to. We went from Key West to Plain Washington. It was 4,240 miles across America.
You remember staying with Milton?
Yes. And I remember eating pasta, putting that with the sauce, because I didn't like pasta with sauce back then.
Yeah. Are you still a picky eater like you were?
No, I try to make foods. I can't see pasta in the fridge. So.
It was frustrating to cook for you.
Yeah, now I will eat, I've tried Mom's spicy burritos and did not like them.
So can you imagine being on the road with a picky eater?
I try not to.
Yeah, it was challenging. There was a lot of days that it was like, oh.
It's terrible. I once traveled by motorcycle through Europe with a girl that she was vegetarian. I don't know if she was vegan, but definitely vegetarian. And in some countries that was all right. You know, like in Germany or Austria, it's easy. But when we went to countries like Poland, Romania, Ukraine, it was impossible to find food or to make someone in a restaurant understand what she wanted. And because in some of these countries, they barely have the word vegetarian in the vocabulary, you know. So she would try to explain that the best way she could, and also through the language barrier. And all they understood was that she wanted more vegetables, but they would still bring the meat and everything else and more vegetables.
Yeah, that would be annoying.
Yeah, it was difficult, and then later after that experience, I always, if I'm going to travel with someone, I explain, look, if you are vegetarian, you know, fine, it's your thing. But if you are not flexible to occasionally eat whatever you find in the restaurant that we can find, then better we not do it, because it's going to be difficult. You know, like we can't be on the road for several hours and then have to spend the next 2 or 3 hours trying to find food for you.
Right.
You know, no, bring a carrot. You know, like improvise or something. Get a knife and go to the garden, see if you find something.
So yeah, Noah has
Grown.
Well, yeah, he's grown. He's not a kid anymore. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him lately. He's
big.
Well, I noticed the difference. Yes, of course. You know, he's in the middle of his fastest growing phase. You know, the growing years.
And he eats now. So this, like, the amount of food that he's eating now would have been would have been very challenging to feed him, because he'll knock out a pizza on his own. And trying to carry food because he just is constantly hungry. That would have been.
Oh, that's like me. Yeah, I'm constantly hungry.
It would have been.
Yeah, it's a good thing I was a picky eater instead of a mass production eater.
Yeah, it would have been. That would have been tough.
Cool. So then, after doing that walk, how is life being?
So
or maybe I should ask differently. How is life being different than before the run?
So for me, a lot of people don't know, when we finished, we drove down to California, and I actually got on a bicycle and I bicycled back across. And that was a Tilly, because I wanted to see what the differences were between walking and bicycling. And it's a totally different experience, and it's a totally different type of thing. But when we got back, there were a lot of financial things we had to deal with that we kind of ignored. And so the first 6 months was, we had a credit card we had to pay, and we had stuff we had to figure out. And I'll let Noah explain it. Noah didn't want to go anywhere. He didn't want to talk to anybody. He was done. He was exhausted. He was just not social, didn't want to do anything. Me, personally, I kind of stressed out a little bit, and I stress ate, and I wasn't exercising, and I put on a bunch of weight. And so it was the transition back to like normal life was very difficult. And for me, it was very like almost like a depression. And you had warned me about this, that like a depression, because you're outside, you're getting air, you're moving around, you have a lot of endorphins going on, and then now I'm in a fluorescent building dealing with people's nonsense.
Most walkers or runners, after they finish, they end up with a between mild and chronic case of depression, and a lot of them put up a lot of weight, because they go from spending 8,000 calories a day to just needing 2,000, and they don't know how to eat anymore, because on the road they would just eat everything they find, because nothing was enough, and then they have to readapt to life back on Earth, and it's not easy.
It was. So how did you feel when we finished, and how did you feel?
Done.
Right. Like, we talk about going out and doing a 5K. Noah's not interested. He's like, no, I do not. So the issue for us is because we did it for advocacy. Noah he correlates an all or nothing advocacy. And he correlates it as an all or nothing advocacy. So if he does anything, he associates it with, all in, going, thousands of miles, and just the concept of doing 5 kilometers is traumatic almost.
It's such a far away place.
So how have you been feeling since then? Like, how are you different? You are definitely much lazier. Well, it's fun because it's funny. It's you're having a conversation with your child. And like, well, last year you did this great thing. What have you done this year? It's like, what's the next bar that you bet? Really, 13.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of very interesting conversations about that. What is next, right? That question of what is next. But I have no idea of how that conversation would go with a 13-year-old. How do you... I barely remember how it is to be 13-year-old. It's so far back that I my memory cannot connect the dots anymore on that. The last synapse from being a kid is already gone. So it's difficult for me to imagine. But it's easier for me to imagine in your case. Even though I don't have kids, but I have to pay bills, and I have to take decisions like where I'm going to live this year, or what is the next project, or what do I need to make happen so my projects go ahead, But from the point of view of Noah, I have no clue.
It was because we've had conversations like, well, what do you want to do? And it's it's so much like a 13-year-old. And I have to take a step back because I want to push him. But realizing that the whole reason we went was all his idea. And I'm not going to push him into anything. Like, if he doesn't want to go, he's not going to do, I mean, he's got some ideas and he's got some aspirations to do stuff, but they're all academic now. They're not like me personally. I'm looking at like what's the next physical challenge I want to do. You know, I was reading a book about a guy who ran across Antarctica. The first person to go across Antarctica on foot. It's like 950 miles.
What's his name?
Colin.
Let's just call him Mr. Freeze.
I just heard about him. I was actually,
because
it was one of the podcasts you sent me.
All right. So yeah, because I saw this interview on a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Yes.
It was fascinating. The entire story was fascinating. That he walked across Antarctica.
Yeah, the first one to cross Antarctica. And he wrote a book about it.
Unassisted. He did that.
Yeah.
Unassisted.
Yeah, because you're not. I mean, nobody's living there, and the polar bears, from my understanding, are not overly friendly.
There are no polar bears there. Man, how ignorant are you? Come on.
Right.
When you said polar bears, I thought.
Yeah.
No.
That was.
Is it the emperor penguins that are down there?
They're just
It's the penguins there.
Penguins.
Yeah.
and seals. Lots of seals.
Yeah. See, no one knows more than me.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I would like to discuss a little more, and we definitely didn't talk about this enough yet, is that you're homeschooling your kids.
Yes.
And I was married a couple times, and during my second marriage, one of the reasons that we had some big differences that I would say a little bit they push us towards divorce is that I didn't want to put our kid in school. I thought it was I'm so annoyed with regular school that I really didn't want him to go, you know, to the local school. And my wife at the time, she was having none of that homeschooling thing. And her argument was that, well, it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work that I don't want. You know, I was never interested in bringing that kind of workload into the house. And I prefer to have him in school and simplify that. Which is, I think, it's kind of a valid argument. But I thought that it was so close to child abuse that I was really convinced we shouldn't do that. And if I was to have a kid, knock on wood, not doing it, but if I was to have a kid, or if I got into a relationship with someone that already has a kid, one of the things that I would be very insistent on is that we homeschool. And also, I have so many memories of my time in school, and I'm so convinced that 90% of that time was wasted. I think that if you look at the entire syllabus of everything that I had to learn from 1st to 8th grade, no more, from 1st to 12th grade, to end of high school, I could have learned all of it in 10% of the time, probably. And I could have skipped all the bullshit, you know, and all the aggravation, and all the bullying, and there is no bullying worse than the bullying from your teachers. You know, when they don't treat you fairly, when they are stupid and they require that you learn stuff that has no point, when they don't accept that you question it, you know. And I was a little bit of a questioning kind of student, asking them questions that are annoying, like, why do I need to memorize the name of all the congressmen? I'll never need it. I could have a list in my pocket for the rest of my life, updated, you know. This is bullshit. I didn't use that word, but But I knew that was bullshit. He was just giving us workload, so he didn't have to be actually teaching. He could just sit there by his desk and wait. And that teacher didn't appreciate my criticism, or my questioning. And so I basically hated all my time in school. I really dislike it. And then when I got to high school, which was in a different school, where my mother was not a teacher, that was terrible. Having your mother as a teacher in the same school where you are is horrible, because she gets special reports every morning, about you. So I had to get straight A's all the time. The pressure was horrible. But then in high school, I went to a different place, and which was far from her eyes. And on that school, I started getting A's in some classes that I liked, and D's and C's and D's in other classes. An occasional F in some things. And the last year of high school, there were classes that I didn't attend at all. I actually had to negotiate with some teachers to just do the final tests, and they say, okay, if you pass the test, if you pass the finals, I'm going to ignore that. So basically, I finished high school on a plea bargain, because I had to do the tests, pass them with flying colors, and then the teachers ignored the fact that I was never there. And that's how I finished high school. But other than that, it was impossible. But if I was to teach a kid today, I think I wouldn't put more than 10% of the work hours compared to just going to regular school. Because regular school is not just a place to learn. Yes, it is a little bit, but it's also a warehouse. It's a warehouse where you can store your kids while you go to work. And you see now during the event that we are having, and how the parents are suffering with having their kids at home, because they don't know what to do, and they cannot go to work. Well, if they could go to work, then they couldn't because they had the kids around. It's a mess, right? So I'm always fascinated to talk to people that actually do homeschooling.
Yeah, it's.
I agree with a whole bunch of what you said, because
Well,
I read a lot of books. Yes, I am a weak reader, but I'm forced to read I think it's 5 books.
so
Why can't I just read the Bible and be done with it?
so we kind of put a lot of pressure on Noah to read, and so he has this thing where he thinks he's a weaker reader because he's comparing himself to me or to Joanne, instead of just relaxing a little bit and just going through. It's a process. It's he's 13.
But
you get better at it
Eventually.
But just to clarify, somehow I don't count reading as the workload, because that's something I did anyway. I went to school for 4 or 5 hours a day, and then I would go home and do my homework, and then I would read, even though my parents didn't even demand that from me. But what happens that my mother was a teacher, so we had lots of books at home. We had an absurd number of books, so it was right there. I would just naturally pick up whatever book, and that caught my attention, and I would read that. And I went through all the encyclopedias, and I went through all the stuff, even a Bible, by the way. it's funny. I have some amazing stories from that.
I'm sure.
Really amazing. So I read a lot. So to me, the reading part, I don't consider that as part of the workload of being in school, because that is something that you have to do anyway, by being human. It's just part of growing up. But what I consider workload is when you are teaching them, or when they are working some kind of assignment, that they need to research something or go do something. The difference is that with homeschooling, the assignments become a little more. There is a variety of kinds of assignment. Like I know a guy in Brazil that he homeschool his kids, and he gives them assignments like you need to build your own nightstand, for your room. And then he sends the kids to a friend that is a carpenter, for instance. And then the kid is going to learn all the steps and how to do everything related to that, in which he's going to have to learn some about geometry. You have to learn measurements. You have to learn, there are several things in mathematics and materials and learning to use a tool that will go into just building a nightstand, right? So if you just decide to teach your kid how to use let's say a ruler or something like that, it's so fucking boring. But if he has to do something, and then to achieve that, he needs to learn to use the tool. Now the tool is interesting, right? Because he can connect the learning with the objective, right? And same with, like he told me that they visit Hawaii, and he sent his kids with a friend to visit the volcanoes, because he said, okay, you have to learn about volcanoes this time. So they went and they had to hike and go up the volcanoes and visit the thing and visit the museums about it and all that, and hear the stories and see the houses that burned down because of the volcanoes. And so the experience for the kids was amazing, but the parent didn't have to do it. He sent the kids with locals, to do that. So the workload for the parents was reduced. And for the kid, it was fun, most of it, right? It was just fun. So I think that it would be very nice if you guys talk to people that travel by boat, that are traveling the world by boat and educating their kids. It may plant a little bug in your mind, because it's amazing the education the kids get by going through many countries while they are at this age.
We had actually talked about doing that, like getting a boat and sailing the trade wind route, or doing like a Christopher Columbus route, or some of these, some of the battles on how the ships moved through certain areas, and then going into certain cultures and seeing how things are different. We actually had talked about doing some version of that.
It is quite addictive. I have to warn you. Most people that do it, they can't stop.
Right. Yeah. No. So
it becomes really, really difficult for them to adapt back to a normal life. It's unthinkable.
Yeah, I communicated with a homeschool family who ended up getting a boat and then ended up going, and they're out there. I think they're on their 4th year now, and he's very concerned that he's never going to get off that boat. He's going to live the rest of his life on that boat.
Yeah. It's very difficult to stop because it's so much more interesting. And knowing that may even push you towards it, because you know that it's going to be more interesting. But I think you have to go knowing that this regular life that you have, you will abandon. It's very likely that at some point you'll go back and sell the house and just get a bigger boat and continue doing it. Because it changes the way you see the world.
Yeah, the march definitely, when we went across, that definitely changed how I view life. Just in general, like I feel that most people spend most of their life trying to be safe, and there's no push, but then there's no failure. And what makes you appreciate life is the failures, is the pushing yourself, is the things. And then when you get to the end, or you get to moments that you get to celebrate, that the emotional and the journey there is so different than, buying a cookie cutter house, having a job, having a 401k, getting a country club membership, and getting a Corvette. That's the pinnacle of, it's like 70% of most people, and this is globally. Globally, people are not just wanting to go experience. They're scared of, I don't know what.
No, it's just habitual. It's just inertia. But the greatest difference is that if you are a regular person, you tend to want to experience things as a passenger. You buy a ticket and you go and you experience that thing. But when you become a traveler, you will become an author of your history. So you are taking the responsibility of choosing what to do and making it happen. So you are the protagonist of the story. You are the main character then. And you are assuming the responsibility for the results as well. And one of the consequences is that you are going to look at an occasional possibility of doing something as a passenger or just as a consumer, and it will feel so not interesting. It's like today that I'm making lists of countries and places that I want to visit, but I don't consider the possibility of getting a ticket and flying there. To me, it doesn't make any sense anymore. I have to go on my own boat or riding a motorcycle or I walk there or somehow I go not surrounded by a bunch of tourists. I have this mental image of a tourist bus full of people, and to me that's absurd.
We went to. We got invited to go to a No Barriers conference in New York, and it's based on a guy who's legally blind and climbed Mount Everest and does things, whitewater rafting, and has accomplished a lot of things for somebody who can't see. And so we were very fortunate to get invited to this conference, and so we flew into LaGuardia, and the area around the airport was under construction, so we couldn't physically leave the airport on foot. But as soon as we could leave the bus, which was like half a mile outside the airport, we walked from the airport to our hotel in Lower Manhattan, and we walked there, and it was like 5 miles. And the people at the conference thought we were insane because we walked 5 miles, and me and Noah were like,
"Yeah,
this is a warm up."
Yes.
And then the next day, we probably walked close to 10-ish miles, and we went down to the World Trade Center and Memorial, and went down and saw the Empire State. But we walked, and we got to experience, and we went through Koreatown, and we went through, because they were having their New Year celebration, and we got to see in their outfits, and we got to sense, every third pizza place and their New York style pizza. But it was an experience that if you flew in, got in a cab or a bus and went to the hotel, and then had the hotel experience, you missed out on all of it. You missed out on what makes New York, New York.
Yeah.
You missed out on the monuments and the occasional Pizza Hut.
Yes, we ran out of time, so we didn't have it. Noah wanted to do a couple more things when we ran out of time. But it was just how it. But in 5 years ago, I would have been the guy who flew in, got in a vehicle, drove to the hotel, would have had an experience at the hotel, and that would have been my New York experience.
Yeah. Well, I used to be that guy too before I did my thing. but I was noticing, and that's one of the reasons that I did my run. I noticed that I was one day inside the Hilton in Las Vegas, and I was trying to remember how it was to be inside the Hilton in Boston, and I realized it's identical. From being inside the building, it's identical. And if I try to remember how it is to be inside the Hilton in Los Angeles, it's identical. You can be inside the Hilton in India, it's identical. You know, the thing about the hotel industry is that one of the goals is to make your experience seamless. You know, wherever you are, it's similar, right? Same with being inside the bus, it's the same. You know, being inside an airplane, it's the same. So if you were going to visit, let's say, Tahiti in the 70s, that was one thing. Visiting it today is the same as flying to Las Vegas. Okay, you are going to be in an airplane, then in another airplane, then you're going to be in a hotel, then you go to a resort. You may go there and not even talk to a local. You know, you can be going to an exotic place and having a completely mundane experience. You know, and to have an authentic experience, you will have to get out of the hotel, and you will have to not take the bus. You know, or sometimes even exercise. Getting yourself into a situation so you can get out of it, you know, like figuring out how, if I had to spend money like a local, if I had to, you know, to eat like a local, how could I do it? No, so what if I cannot go to a restaurant that has the menu in English? How is that going to go? You know, what if I need to? Yeah, Noah is there smiling, no, thinking, oh no, I'll never do it. So what if you have to go to a place like I did more or less recently? I was in Ukraine and I decided to go to a Turkish street food place, and where the guys were Turkish and they didn't speak any English. And their Russian was too difficult for me because they spoke a little bit of Russian but with strong Turkish accent, and I speak a little bit of Russian with a little bit of American accent, and so the communication was impossible. And I had to figure out their food, I figured out what I liked, I ate a lot of it and became friends with them. You know, so next time I came in, they would already try to talk to me and they would say hi and all that, right? So, but it was really outside of my comfort zone, and that's what made it, you know, interesting. So when you say that you got out of the airport, decided to walk to Manhattan, in my mind it makes perfect sense. It's like, of course, that's what you do.
We wanted to. I personally had never been to New York, and I wanted to experience like what is. And we walked through.
It feels old and new and everything.
Yeah, we walked through. I can't remember the boroughs that we walked through, but I had wanted to experience that, and it was
going over the bridge is magnificent, right? Yeah,
it was just
those. Which one bridge you use?
I think the 52nd Street Bridge is the one we went over because the pedestrian crossing better on that one than the other. Like there's a couple of bridges we could have crossed, but the pedestrian was set up. There was a bike, like an actual bike lane. It was very wide.
Very nice.
Right, where one of the other bridges, it was very narrow and not lit very well, and because we were going to be getting there at night. On the airplane, by the time we were coming into the city, it was nighttime. So we just wanted to, who knows who we're going to bump into and what kind of, locals. And so we were trying to pick a a fairly scenic but somewhat semi-safe. Not trying to put ourselves in harm's way for fun.
Yeah. Also, your perception of safety must be very, very different than most people today.
Yes.
You know, because you were on the side of the road with, how old was he at that time? 11. With an 11-year-old kid on the side of the road for thousands of miles. Right. So, and the safety and security of both of you was ultimately in your hands, right? So you had to take the responsibility of knowing that, okay, now the buck stops with me. I am the last line of defense now.
Yeah.
Right.
There was the irony. When I first started, I thought that people would be the issue, bumping into, homeless people or drug addicts and people like that was my biggest concern. That in the cities we would have issues with, and we went through East St. Louis. Like we went through some very rough, in most people's mind, rough areas. Never ever did we have any issues. Our biggest issue was farm dogs. Yeah, by far was the bigger issue. Snakes, an occasional snake, and then drivers that just weren't paying attention.
Yeah. In my opinion, the traffic is the number one, and I would say a far, very far number two danger is the dogs, especially in the West. In the desert and around cities, people leave their dogs unleashed and the gate open. And
the attack pig is by far the most horrible way to go out.
So in Washington State, somebody had trained their pig to be a guard animal, and this pig came running and bounced off the fence trying to get to us. And we filmed it. We tried to film it a little bit. There was a little bit of a bush head. I'd never seen it. I'd never seen an attack pig before.
They warned me about pigs a lot when I was going through West Texas because they have too many there. And in Arizona, there's also a lot. And then they told me, don't hesitate. Pigs, if they are in a group, they will kill you. If you don't do something about it. And I asked this guy in West Texas. I love him. I visit him every time I go there. So what do I do? He said, oh, you look at which pig is faster and you kill that one, and the other pigs will eat him. So you know which pig to shoot. You have to shoot the one that comes closer to you. And let the others take care of it.
Yeah, we didn't have any issues with. Really, no, the cars were the biggest. I agree with you 100%. Cars are by far the most dangerous. People not paying attention. People just doing goofy stuff.
Like the attack pig.
They were.
Yeah.
We had people slow down to kind of see what we were doing, and then the driver behind them wasn't paying attention, and then ran into each other. We had that happen a few times.
Fuck.
And then
we encountered attack.
But because of Florida, ironically, and I think it was you that told us to wave at people. Was it you the one that told us to wave at people?
Yeah, now I wave at.
I think I said that because I used to do it. I used to wave and.
So somebody had told. I'm pretty sure it was you. Had told us look at the driver, see if they're making eye contact, and wave. And if you see them, just start going off to the side now because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I did that. I don't know if I said that to you, but that was something I used to do. And also, I didn't want to shake hands with people because if you shake hands with 100 people a day, you will get a cold.
Right.
You will get something. And you don't want to have a flu while you are doing this because it's terrible. So but I learned that if people were approaching and I wave at them, sometimes they are like 10 feet away from you, and you are waving, then they wave, and they are less likely to put their hands in front of them,
Right.
for you to shake. Or if you see that they are beginning to move their arm forward, I would do a fist bump. So they would switch to fist bumping.
Right.
So this way, I rarely shook hands with anybody. And then I had my hand sanitizer with me, which is very useful now during the event. But in normal life, I don't do that. In normal life, I'm not a germaphobe at all. I actually like to expose myself to germs to keep my immune system working, right, and training. But during exceptional times like now, or during exceptional times like when you are, walking across America and your immune system is already stressed, it's good to avoid shaking hands at that time.
Yeah, we don't. Did we shake? I don't remember shaking hands with people.
Neither do.
No, people would hug. People would hug Noah.
Oh no!
That would happen. And most girls.
Yeah. But this is something you can even test this, like when you are in a conference, or any event where you will meet a lot of people. Try that. Just wave at them, and you see that most of them will wave. And another thing is, when you are introduced to people, do an A/B testing. With half of them, when you say your name with your last name. And for the other half, you only say your first name. And you are going to notice that they overwhelmingly respond with their name and last name, or with just their first name. They tend to respond with the same level of formality that you do.
Interesting.
It's quite automatic. It's quite automatic. Or if you do, or also try this. If you know that you will meet many people, with half of them, talk with one accent, and with the other, talk with a different accent. And you are going to see that people will respond at you differently. So like if you can do accents, or if you can talk fast with one group and talk very slow with the other, very relaxed with the other, and measure the response. It's so freaky to watch that. Because you see how people respond in automaticity, right? There was a guy that he wrote a book about this kind of thing, and he called the book the Unbearable Automaticity of Being.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find that book.
Yeah. Yeah, people will really respond the way that you start the conversation. And another thing I like to do is, if I am in a group, I tell people where to sit, just to see if it even comes across for them to possibly suggest a different arrangement. So I do something completely arbitrary. Like I see that people came in together. I tell one to sit here, the other one to sit over there, just to see if they say anything. No, and they don't. They go and I guess they presume I must have a reason, right? But I didn't. It's just arbitrary to see if they do it. So I don't take that to the extent of being disruptive, but yeah, that if you ask if I actually just experiment with social interaction, yes, I do.
That's funny. We have not gone to the level you have with experimenting with people.
Uh-huh.
Try some of that social experimenting. That would be.
Oh, and another thing you should do, if you feel like.
We're trying different.
Yeah. But like do this when you are doing like a barbecue or a dinner, and you have several guests. Choose one guest to and serve him less. Like you give 2 sausages to everybody else and only 1 sausage to him, and he can see that there are more sausages over there, and then start reading his body language, and you will learn a lot about people that way, or you see, or you either underserve. Of course, at some point you clarify, hey, I'm just fucking with you, look, this is a joke, but try that. Try overserving someone or underserving someone for a few minutes and read their body language. It's amazing what you discover.
Yeah, I think I'll just eat the plate.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
How's your boat project coming?
The boat project is quite interesting. So now it's 2 boat projects. Because I discovered that it's easier to make the big boat if I make the small boat first, right? But then I made the small boat really interesting. It's a flying boat and all that stuff. So I made it so interesting that it's exciting as well. So that one is like halfway built already, and then after I finish that, I'll start moving to making the big boat.
Big boat.
Yeah. The first one will also make it a lot easier to leverage contacts and attract attention and raise money and do all the kind of things that I need to do to make the second one happen. It will be a lot easier after I do the first one. Also, it shows people that I can build stuff that is more complicated than my furniture. Yeah, because I have been a software engineer for many years, but I didn't build physical things, before. But now I can do carpentry, I can fix the house, I work on the roof the other day, and I can do plumbing, electric, welding, and I changed the gates behind the house, I built a ramp to get out of the back, like all that stuff I do now.
Nice.
It's even I am surprised. If anyone that would know me years ago would not believe I'm doing this. But it feels quite natural to me now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good.
So, yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, the boat is exciting. So I'm going to have. Now I'm not going to say that I think it's a good idea for you. I think you should actually buy a boat, because otherwise you put a lot of years between
Right.
now and starting. Because building a boat, unless you use a strategy to make it really fast, it's a multi-year project. And if you are not incredibly interested in that, then it's going to be it's going to drain a lot of the energy and the enthusiasm. So it is interesting for me because building is the adventure.
Right.
It's not. So I have 2 adventures. One is building, and the other is traveling. But if you're not really enthusiastic about the engineering of it, it's much better that you buy a boat and go.
Well, we are going to buy a boat and then learn how to sail.
Yeah. Anything? Feel free to ask anything, because I have some experience in both. Both in sailing and choosing boats and knowing how people live in them. So I can help you.
Yes, so you are a resource, and then there's another guy he's living on a power boat, so I don't know how useful his information is going to be, because we need to be on a sailboat.
Yeah.
And,
with the kind of travel that you are going to do, it has to be sail. But even within the world of sailboats, you have different styles, different strategies. It can be monohull or catamaran. Now there are some trimarans coming along. The knowing if you want speed or not is very important. So we have to talk about it, to role play how you will be using it, and then it becomes easy to choose the right boat. And also how much you will have to. You'll be surprised how much you have to learn to do the maintenance, because You will have to be capable of doing all the maintenance.
Right.
Not part of it, not a little, all of it.
Right. You got to be able to patch a hole. You got to be able
Yeah.
to you got to be able to do like semi-complicated repairs.
Yeah, you have to learn to do all the maintenance. You're taking care of all the security and all the logistics. So it's unescapable. And that will be a very interesting and very exciting learning curve for both you and your wife. You know, you guys will be really happy you had to go through that learning process. And when I say security, I'm also saying healthcare. Like you're not just homeschooling. You're home. You are ultimately responsible for being the EMT.
Right.
You're the first responder, and you are the EMT aboard, right? And you are the police. You are the all the logistics, and you are the only politician aboard. You know, so it's all in your hands. And I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating to live like that. To live, you can be very aware of how much the responsibility is yours living in the regular world. But living on a boat, it's unavoidable that you'll be aware of it. You know, either you know that you're aware and you take responsibility for it, or you will fail. At the first incident, at the first serious situation, you realize that, oh shit, I'm not prepared for this.
Right.
You know, and you will feel really bad, you know, if you are not prepared. So it's inescapable. And your kids are going to watch you taking charge and taking decisions, and hopefully taking good decisions. And the example will be much better than any class that they can take by watching you be in charge, by watching the way that you and Joanne will have to cooperate in things in a way that is much more intense than what you have to do on land, and the way that you will have to support each other psychologically more than today. Can you imagine with all the stuff that you went through the last few years? And I'm saying that the psychological support that you need to have is even greater.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So it's even difficult to imagine, because what you guys had to do was what you guys had to do to help each other was already unusual, right? And remember when we had a conversation here at home, I was talking to her and I was saying that your life is going to change more than anybody else's. You know, the impact for her is greater because she has a much harder psychological barrier around her, which is the instinct to protect of a mother. You know, so she had to really have her rational mind take over enough that she could go over those fears. You know, and I cannot even imagine the conversations you guys had to have, you know, to make this happen. Well, now imagine all of that multiplied by a certain number, because on the boat is going to be more.
Right.
Okay, because at least on land, ultimately, there are more options to use traditional support services. You know, from the local clinic to the local COP, everything is physically nearby. But among sailors, they understand that all they have is each other, so they help each other a lot. But now it's regular people helping regular people. It's not, there is no figure of authority. You know, there is no authority helping you. It's you and your friends and your neighbors. And the psychological impact of relying on yourself and relying on friends and neighbors and strangers that you are going to discover that they are also very competent and they are also very friendly and helpful is something transformative. It's going to teach you guys at an even greater level than today, because you know this already, but you know even more how much people are friendly, they are cool, and they are helpful. And in the, I would say that there is no world in which that is more intense than in the sailing community. Nothing comes close to that. The biker community is good, but not even close. The RV community, not even close. They are cool, they are fun, they will share a beer, they will share some stories, but they are not really there depending on each other. Right? They depend on the supplier and the campgrounds and this and that. But on the boat, if you are there around an island in the Caribbean, there is nothing there to help you that is not each other. There's nothing. So it will, especially to your kids, it will make them so much more independent, self-reliant, self-confident than anything that they can learn on land.
You excited?
Yeah. He may even start liking to eat fish. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are going to. We have a little bit of we have a few things we got to wrap up, and then because at the end of the day, it's like, what's the next? I don't want to feel like we plateaued or that was the pinnacle of everything, and now I'm going to be in some homogenized house and some Joe job and just retire, wait for my retirement check to show up, and that's the end.
Yeah. That exactly. I'm happy to hear that from you. I'm happy that you understood so completely how life changes and how it cannot fit anymore on the old mold, on the old space. It just doesn't fit. So you become unfit for regular life. That's the way I like to say it.
It's funny when I talk to people, they just can't comprehend it. Like, why don't you try? Like, why don't you go experience something? Because I get questions all the time about how do you homeschool. I said, well, go pick a topic and then go to the area. If you're studying the Civil War, go to a battleground.
Yeah.
Start at a point where the offense started and run up the hill. Feel the sweat and feel the experience what they had to do to be in this battle, or whatever you're learning. If you're studying the migration of birds, go to where they're migrating. Yeah. Go experience it. Go see it.
And talk to people that have amazing experiences themselves. That's so important. I like to say that on my boat, the dining table is going to be the most interesting dining table in the world, because my friends are amazing. I have friends that have so incredible experiences, and they have so unusual experiences that the stories that we are going to be exchanging are incredible. Look at the podcasts that I do today are a tiny sample of that. But if you are here one day to one of the talks we do around the fire, I made a fire pit on the back of the house.
Oh, nice.
That sometimes we sit there and we drink some and talk around the fire. But my friends are engineers and sailors and bikers. They are travelers. They are politicians and criminals and cops and prostitutes and ex-convicts. My friends they come from really every direction, and from each one of those directions come amazing stories. Now imagine what happens when you mix them. you know, and when they start comparing notes and they discover, oh, that experience, that you know, that is similar to what happened to me when I was over there, and then they start. There is a cultural cross-pollination. I even like to say that when you live in a regular life and everybody's from the same town and everybody lives a similar life, what you have is cultural inbreeding. Because everybody has the same culture, and it becomes so annoying, so boring, right? So you're going to step into the extreme opposite of it, you know, in a world where right now you are in a world of being weird. You guys are freaks.
Yes.
It's clear. You guys are freaks. But you are freaks living more or less alone in a world of more or less normal people. You have a few friends that are freaks too, but they are spread out. They're not all together, right? When you go into the sailing world, into the sailing, not the powerboat credit card captain world, I mean the live aboard sailors, you find out that almost nobody's normal there. Almost nobody. There is even a tradition that it's unspoken, but you will feel it, you will notice that when people meet you, like they invite you into their boat and they want, you know, or they want to share a dinner. Hey, we're going to come over for dinner and we'll have our dinner together. And, you know, and you bring something and you bring some drinks and stuff. And observe this. You will notice that most people will not ask about your life before boating unless you start talking about it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of them, first of all, most of them don't like the life they were living before. Right? And also, a lot of them had a reason to abandon it. They had a great disappointment or divorce, failure, bankruptcy, crime, or they have a price on their head. So they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be lying about it. You know, because maybe they need to protect that past.
Right.
You know, so they will not bring it up. So if they don't bring up, you don't ask. You just ask about their life as a sailor. Right. You know, what year did you start this? Oh, I started in the year 2000, right? So you are going to talk about 2000 onwards. You know, and it's quite automatic. You will notice when you are hanging out with sailors that it happens that way, mostly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to that.
Yeah. And there are some places like very remote bars and that they have a very dark history or very checkered reputation. And in those places, you really see that, you know, like you see that nobody asks about your personal life. Because they know that in most cases, people are going to lie anyway.
Right, yeah. So,
you know, so what's the point?
So we had talked about moving back to Florida so we could start figuring out the whole how to sail and how to figure this.
Where are you right now?
We're in Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
We moved from when we finished, we moved up here to Atlanta because of the networking. Because we have a story to tell, and we have, you know, we're in the middle of a couple of different book projects and a couple of different things that we're going to be using for. We have a documentary that we're editing now, and we have a couple of others. So we came to Atlanta because the networking for that type of stuff is the best. It was either LA, New York, or Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And Joanne told me she would divorce me if we moved to LA or New York. So I do enjoy being married, and so Atlanta. It was Atlanta or Houston, and it came down to Atlanta. So
cool.
Kansas was on the table.
Yeah, I mean, we could have moved anywhere. Kansas, yeah, if you want to, we can still move to Kansas. However, we're not getting a sailboat in Kansas.
Yeah.
Everything.
But when we're finished, like once we have some of these projects kind of wrapped up, then we're looking at moving back to South Florida, and we would be close to you because that's
sure.
better places to sail is down in that area, in that pocket.
Yeah, and also after that, we'll definitely be occasionally meeting, around the world, somewhere on the water,
right?
Because also the oceans cover 70% of Earth, but the really cool places to hang out on a boat, they are down to hundreds.
Right.
It's not there are the places where people tend to concentrate a little more, are not that many.
Right.
So it's very normal that you occasionally find friends that you met years earlier. You find them, you see the same boat, or now they are in a bigger boat or with a bigger family. So it is in a way it is a small community.
To be out on open water, you have to have a transponder, so you can track anybody's boat.
Yeah, you can. Of course, you can keep in touch, and our communication is way too easy.
Right.
And it's like you can be online. We can have internet, on the boat, and and radio and all that. So it became so easy. To keep in touch and to even plan. Hey, let's meet in Norway, in this summer, and then you end up there. So that is a good and a bad side to that, But I decided that on my boat there will be, I'll have internet access. I'll distribute the internet on the boat. Only for certain services. I will not keep, social media open and browsing and everything open all the time. I just don't. I don't think it's healthy. One of the goals to go on the boat is exactly to be in the moment. It doesn't help if people will be Facebooking all day.
Right.
So I'll just have certain rules for that. And living on a boat requires a certain number of interesting rules and habitual things to make it work really well. For instance, there are different situations in which you have different rules. When you are navigating, that's one situation, but when you are on anchor, that's a different one. When you have guests, that's a different one. When you are having a party, that's a different one. So, for instance, when you are navigating, when you're actually moving from one place to another, it's a very good idea to have a no alcohol policy. So nobody drinks. Yeah, because you don't want anybody to be impaired and being on watch. You don't want to have that possibility. And when you are on anchor, you can relax the safety a little. Like if you are moving, people cannot go to the deck without protective gear and certain equipment and someone watching and things like that. But when you are on anchor, you can relax and people can go for a dive and things like that. So you have different rules for different situations. And as the captain, you have to know those rules very well and enforce them, and also explain to people why they are important.
Right, because the safety ultimately is, you don't want to lose anybody. That would be
exactly. And also, if you are in such an environment, remember you are the only politician, right? Mm-hmm. You are the only one that is setting the rules. But remember that everybody else on the boat are your constituency. You cannot be a tyrant. You're not going to last very long. Right. You will have to develop that fine skill of of being the captain and being the authority there, but with the happy consent of the people on board. They will have to see that you are doing things for a good reason, and that you are a just and level-headed person. And that's a constant exercise. And the old idea of, whatever the captain says is the last word and you cannot question, and it's old. That rule exists because it was created at a time when all the sailors were mostly conscripts and totally ignorant. But now you have crew members that can be very sophisticated and smart, but with different values. So you need to communicate to them in a very effective way, so they understand when it's time to sit down and question something and clarify things, and when is the time to just do what you say, because you are in a time restricted situation. Like, let's say you are approaching the dock, and some people, one guy has the line on the bow and another one has the other line, and people need to know what they are supposed to do, and they need to know how to communicate with you precisely. And if you need to change something and you give them an order, now is not the time to question it.
Right.
So there are times in which you just need to do things. So striking that perfect balance is something that will make you evolve as well. As a leader, as a person, and as a leader. And you will also develop a quite fine perception, a quite fine capacity to notice when people are stressed. You'll even understand the nature of it. You'll be able to watch them and see when their answers are not as friendly, or when they seem tired, or when they seem to get exhausted or sick at a different pattern. You will notice that. And if you develop that, you will know how to correct for that, and how to create countermeasures to avoid that situation. But that will happen because you will develop your sensibility to that. Joanne is going to develop that as well. The difference is that as a woman and as a mother, she is already doing that to a certain level, But you don't need to. You are not under that pressure. You are under pressure to solve some other aspects of life. But as the captain, you will develop that as well. So you'll be more of a father. You become a little bit of a mother too. Yeah, and the kids too end up learning certain skills, because they will occasionally be under the pressure of being in such a small space with their siblings, which sounds horrible, but it's occasional. It's not all the time, But also, like the first time that I saw a boater take his kid, like little kid, like a year old maybe, and they put anchor, and they start preparing dinner and stuff, and the kids went out to the deck, and everybody was playing and jumping on the water. And then the father, he took his little kid and threw him on the water, and then he jumped too, And then it's still a fucking baby, right? And the kid would swim and go around and all that, and come to him, and he would take him and and celebrate and throw him on the water again, and I could imagine people watching that and freaking out, completely freaking out. But he thought, I don't know if you need to teach a kid to swim. Maybe they were born already knowing. I don't know. I don't know. I never raised a small kid. But it was something so normal. So you need to know when it's the time to expose them like that and what is their capability, and when is the time to apply much more restrictive rules, right? So you have to know that. I found that fascinating to see that. And now imagine the psychological jump that is going to be for you guys to let the kids go do whatever. You don't know what they're doing. They got on the boat, on their little boat, and they went to the beach. That's it. They are not under your at your line of sight, you know, and they are going to explore and do whatever, you know. So for people that grew up and living in America, in a society where we don't let the kids ride the bicycle to school,
right?
You know, we are so overprotective here that, but the rest of the world is different, you know, and definitely the sailing world is different. So you may let your kids go with the kids from the other boats, and they, you know, and the other sailors, and they go do stuff. Like I was talking once to this guy that when they were going through Australia, they exchanged kids with another family. So they did all the paperwork and they left their kid with this family in Australia, and then he went to attend school there as an experiment, and they took the Australian kid with them to sail to Brazil.
Oh.
You know? How much trust does that take?
Right.
Right? And what impact it's going to have in their lives? Right? Those kids, both of them, they would not be normal. They'll never be normal again. Not that they were before, but or you may learn certain things and exercise certain things that people in regular society just don't do. You know, like you let your small kids, cut the fish. You know, you fish, you catch a fish, and you teach them how to handle a knife. That's one of the things you need to teach your small kids to do, right? Is how to play with a knife. And if people back home see that, they freak out, right? They don't know how to do this. You cannot teach the kids how to prevent, and this is the greatest risk in boats, is fire. Mm-hmm. You know, you cannot really effectively teach kids how to prevent and understand the risks of fire if you don't teach them how to make it. You know, you guys need to go to the beach and do your campfire sometimes. You need to let them do it. Teach them to do it. We need to teach them how to start the fireplace or the barbecue and how to put it out. You need to let the kids work with the fire so they know it. You know. And the younger they are to know this, the better. The better. If you go to the NTSB website and look at the reports of accidents they have reports from every year, you will see that most of the incidents in recreational boats are fire.
Interesting.
A few drowning, a few accidents of other nature, but most of them is fire. And fire on a small boat goes quick, right? And it's deadly, and it may be a trap. You know, boats are traps. If you don't plan things correctly and people don't know what to do, they are trapped in a box. Yeah. So yeah, go to the NTSB website. It's pretty good. The way they write it and how well they describe everything.
What do you think?
I think, well, a fire on a boat is, well, as I'm taking it here, is pretty darn deadly.
Yes, it would be very bad.
And also, I'm beginning to lose interest in this little call.
So,
I'm not kidding.
Good Noah's bored with the boat talk.
No.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. One thing that you guys should do is one of these days when you take like a week vacation or something like that, and talk to people that live in big boats so they can take several guests, and go the entire family, go spend a week with them. It will cost you some. People will charge you for the charter, but you will go and you'll be with them, and they can show you how they handle things. And then you just be there and sail with them and be on watch, help clean the boat, help cook, help do all the stuff. And so even though you're paying for the opportunity of working on it.
Yeah, we were looking at charter prices, and they'd really come down in the last few weeks.
So definitely, yes. But go on a charter where you are staying with a family, or at least with a couple. Not like a commercial charter company where you pay for a captain and it's just the boat that is like a hotel.
Right, yeah, no.
And that captain. No, you want to be in a charter where people live on their boat. But the boat is big enough to take, how many are you? Like 5?
Yes.
Yeah, so that they can take 5 people, and with the appetite of 7. So you have to do a charter with a family that lives on their boat. So that will be the most useful learning experience for you.
Yes. Yeah. We have been researching that.
Yeah, do that. You may end up with a more urgent sense of, we have to do this.
Right.
This is it. And when I after I finished my second run, and I went to Europe, that's when I decided this is the time I'm going to make my boat. I can't wait another, because this project is so old for me. Like I have been liking sailboats since the 90s, but I decided to make one in 2004, 2005. So it's a 15-year-old dream. So I said, no, it cannot be a dream anymore. Now it has to be a plan. And then I can work on it. Because you cannot work on a dream. You can only work on a plan. Right. And I started to figure out how to do it 2015. So it's a 5-year-old project that I'm working on, and I have patience. I know it's not going to happen instantly, but now that when people were asking after I did the run, what are you going to do next? And I said, the next project is much more difficult. It's much more challenging because building a boat takes more money, more time, more logistics, more psychological endurance. You take every characteristic that you need to walk across America, you need more.
Right.
To build a boat, plus engineering.
Right, because you're designing a unique whole.
Yeah, and I'm taking all the risks, I'm taking out the responsibility, so I need to deal with all the compliance, I need to deal with all the challenges, plus I need to figure out how to pay for this. So each one of those challenges is enormous. And so it couldn't be more exciting.
Good. I'm happy that it's moving along.
Yeah, it is. So, anything else that you would like to cover now before I tell a story?
Anything else you want to talk about, Noah? No, we covered a lot of ground.
Yes, we did. No, and I'm definitely happy that we keep talking, we keep in touch. Like we are developing some very interesting friendships. Mm-hmm. among the runners, and a lot of these people are incredible. Today I posted the podcast I shot a few days ago with Nick. It's there today. You'll be amazed. The experience that this guy went through, having an accident, having been hit by a car and surviving it, and now planning to continue his run. It's unbelievable.
Is he the one that got hit in Ohio? The Australian?
Yeah. I just did the podcast with him, and I published this morning. And you'll love it.
Yeah, I saw Jim is, I think, running support with him for a little bit or something. I saw somewhere.
He had I think they. I know that they know each other. I don't know how much they participated, but yeah, Jim was involved at some point
when because he got hit very close to where Jim lives.
That's right.
And so
that's
when
right.
that happened, then Jim was like trying to be supportive, because the guy, I guess he's from Australia, right? He's not from here.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Yeah, he's not from here, and his wife was in New Zealand when this happened. And
can you imagine? Can you imagine the wife and the kids heard him getting hit?
Oh.
They listened to it, and they listened to him screaming afterwards, and they had to talk to him on the phone to keep him conscious. Can you imagine how horrible that is?
That would have been horrible.
I try not to.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, I look forward to listening to that, because because he was going when we were going. He was doing it the same year.
Yeah,
we were going, and so that was, that was another. Because the one guy, I forgot his name, he died right away that year, in January, or maybe it was.
Yeah.
But it killed him, and then he got hit in the summertime, I think.
Yeah, there were three cross country walkers that died, plus Nick that survived but got hit too. So I don't remember the names of the others, but I remember that I saw the news of 3 different people getting hit. One of them, he was pretty distracted. But the other 2, they were just, going their usual way and using the usual precautions that we do, like going on the left and things like that. But
you met the widow he died in 2014 in Colorado, and we met the widow.
Oh.
We were in Oregon, and his mistake was he was going with traffic.
Yeah, that's a big mistake.
And he was like 8 feet off to the side of the road, going with traffic in Colorado.
Yeah,
he was in a very remote area in Colorado in a tractor trailer. The guy was nodding off, and he drifted out and just crushed him instantly.
But still, if you are looking at traffic,
right,
your odds are better.
Much better.
Definitely better. And that's what terrifies me about doing this by bicycle. Because by bicycle is like, and kudos to you, man, that you did it. I don't have the balls for that.
So
it's true. You are going with traffic and with your back towards traffic, and you are doing that on the lane.
Right.
To me, that is quite absurd.
We had close calls when I was going. There was, it was every day, but it was every few days. It was very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Much more dangerous than
I would that one is beyond my threshold for to accept risk. It's that one I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do myself. And I would do a lot of crazy shit, but not that one. Because I would be freaking out all the time.
Right. It was very stressful. There was a lot of very stressful moments, because you're going and you're kind of in your own zone.
Yeah.
It's far more physically demanding because you're trying to move along.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're a little tired.
Yeah.
You're not really paying attention to everything that's going around you like you normally would be.
Yeah.
And a lot of close calls.
Yeah. And that is not a lot of, hitting and surviving on that thing. It's usually hit and die.
Yeah.
Because it's so violent.
It's so violent, and depending on what's around you, what are you landing on? So like the closest call I had was with a tractor trailer, and I had a flag,
Uh-huh.
big flag sitting out the back, and I had it at a little bit of an angle
Mm-hmm.
the bag so that a car, like it would be in the view of the person. So it would be, I'm trying to make as much, visual. Don't run me over.
Mm-hmm.
A tractor trailer grabbed the flag. Part of the truck grabbed the flag and broke the flag. And that flag was only sticking out maybe this much past, like,
Yeah.
It wasn't like way out,
Uh-huh.
but it was on, and it broke, and that guy was within, and for that to happen, he had to been within a few inches of actually hitting me. And the air pushed me, and the problem was I was on a bridge, and so my buffer was maybe 18 inches before the corner of the bridge, and if he would have hit me, I would have went either into the rail or I went over the side.
Yeah. You could die twice.
That would have been an ugly moment.
That would be ugly, man. Yeah, that thing terrifies me. You know what was very pleasant, and I am suggesting that people do a trail. Trails are fun because you're not on the road.
Yeah,
and we have amazing trails in America.
Yeah, like Florida, there's a trail that goes most of the Florida East Coast, and it's a bike. It's like an 8-foot wide bike trail.
Yeah, and I used the one that goes through the middle of Florida for like 40 miles. It was amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
We use a lot of different. So in like from St. Louis to Kansas City is a trail. It was an old train. It was an old train line, and it was gravel, but it's got to be 15 feet wide.
Wow!
And it was, and it's along the Missouri River, so so for us it was a homeschooling thing because that's the Lewis and Clark Trail, and when we were going in it, we were at the same time frame of the year that they were going. And so we were studying Lewis and Clark, and we were studying.
That's interesting.
On that trail.
That's so interesting. So let me tell you something that happened just a few days ago. So because of the current event, people were saying that you need to social distance, you need to isolate and things like that, and that makes total sense. You are dealing with a situation that requires that. But then I was looking at the words social distancing, and I thought, wow, that has this meaning that suggests also that people are going to be more alone, and they are going to be more there will be more loneliness, and stress related to that. And every time I see something that has any meaning, I like to ask, how would it look like if it was the opposite? So how would it be if it meant exactly the opposite? So I thought, okay, so if social distancing means that we are going to be closer to people, what needs to happen for that to be true? And my thought was that, okay, the physical part of it, however long it takes, at some point it will be over. At some point we'll be moving as usual and meeting people as usual. So what can happen before that will get us closer together? And I thought, it's taking the initiative to talk to people, even if it is just online for now, but taking the initiative. So I wrote a message that I sent to not to everybody, but to my friends that I like to talk to, but we don't talk very regularly.
Okay.
You know, and that number was significant. It was like some 30 people that I thought, oh, I really like to talk to this person, but we rarely do, you know, online or offline. Most of them live in other cities, so normally it would be online anyway. And I sent them this message, saying, hey, let's take this opportunity to talk via, Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever, or on the phone. Because then when the time comes, we are going to realize that we are closer instead of being more distant. And in fact, I have been doing podcasts every day, and I am talking to people that I haven't been talking for years in some of these cases. We are reconnecting. And I'm doing that basically every day. Every day I have at least one conversation with someone that I rarely talk, and I like them.
Nice.
So that is my message to people. Make a list of the people that you like, and just invite them for a conversation. When I was doing the running across America, there were some 3 or 4 people that really helped, because when I was feeling lonely or tired or bored, I could call and talk to them sometimes for an absurd amount of time, and they had the patience, and they understood that I needed that it was necessary for my mental health. And now I think that just by making yourself more available to your friends, for them to call you when they are feeling shitty, is going to get you closer together. And I suggest you do the same, and everybody watching it do the same.
It's a great idea. We should do that.
Yeah. So that was it.
All right, Milton, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And looking forward to the next time you do that in person.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Forager's World. Please visit our website,